we asked people how much of the following factors affected the decision to retire when they did, or people prioritize what they think they will expect to affect their decision. I'd like to focus on the retirees. We gave them 8 factors, and the one that was most important was determining they will be able to pay their monthly bills. That led 73%, that affected them 73%, a great deal or somewhat. And I'd like to add one word that's implicit here, but make it explicit. Determine you're able to pay your monthly bills now. Not planning for inflation, not planning for unexpected expenses or healthcare, or even the purchase of the next car. If you could afford to pay your monthly bills now, you could afford to retire. The second one is determining you had accumulated enough to last for your full retirement. Only 59% of retirees said that affected them a great deal or even somewhat. Becoming eligible for Social Security affected 42%, a great deal or somewhat, and you become eligible at age 62, becoming eligible for Medicare. So again, the key point is, if I can pay my monthly bills now, I can afford to retire. Only 59% determined they had accumulated enough to last for their full retirement, and I wonder in many cases how well that determination was done. Next chart. Now, from the focus groups, we heard, and everyone in the focus groups of the approximately 65 people were asked to tell their story. We heard many different reasons, and a great deal more color was provided. It became too physically difficult. The butcher could lift the big slabs of meat, but it was harder and harder. The stress of work became difficult. They felt unappreciated. I heard a lot of people say, I was working for a 30-year-old. The travel became too hard, or they needed to provide caregiving for family members. More on that later, but this is basically an issue for women. Or lost their job and decided not to apply for another because they basically had it. Now, interestingly, many made the decision to retire with little discussion or consultation. Sometimes they informed their spouse that they did it. Now, the spouse knew that there was difficulty and wasn't surprised, and the spouse never discouraged retirement. But in many cases, it was described as a solitary decision just made, and sometimes made in a day. That, you know, the business trip was just too tough, and I stopped. Next chart. And so, in terms of my interpretations, it's clear that many people who retire can work longer. The decision to retire is often made considering the difficulty of working and the current ability to afford to pay monthly bills. Just had enough. It reached the point where it was so difficult that they just stopped working. Little or no consideration of long-term impact of inflation, little or no consideration of financial impact of unpredictables, little effective risk management. And it seems to me it would be useful for there to be some scenario planning. I could stop now, and what level of financial security I have. Well, what happens if I work 2 months more, or 4 months more, or 6 months more, and earn that much more Social Security benefit, and earn that much more money and have that much more saving? But that scenario planning, not considering a station of trade-offs and working a little longer to get a little more, tended not to be done.